So I just was attending the Microsoft Ability Summit and flipped over here afterwards. And so Asante, apologies for joining at the last moment. And I learned something on that summit. So that I'm going to identify myself for people with accessibility challenges and disabilities. So my name is Michael Kennedy. I am a white male. I'm about 53 years old. I have silver hair and a silver goatee or Van Dyke. I'm wearing a white shirt, and I have a mostly black, super cool background that I got from one of my teammates that says Microsoft Customer Success across the top. And today I am going to share with you a lot about teams and about what can be done with teams. And let me go ahead and share my screen. And I also want to share my background, my audio. So give me just 1 second to do that. Unfortunately, I have been using Teams almost exclusively for my community meetings, and I have forgotten some of my skills around using live events. So I'm feeling a little clunky right now.
No problem.
That's all right. I'm going to get through it. Okay, so let me open up my slide deck. Okay, and let me.
You got it. We can see it now.
Okay, wonderful. And are you able to see how many sites or apps do you log on to perform your role every day? Okay, all right. So we're working. We're cooking with gas here. So this is a picture taken in Texas with a beautiful Texas bluebonnets, and I got to speak last week at the Texas Distance Learning Association meeting with one of my customers. That's like my largest customer, the Texas Health and Human Services Agency. And I got to present with Janelle Paul, who is their Director of Learning and Organizational Development. And we spoke a lot about the challenge that our customers have, especially in state and local government or public sector, with how many applications they have, as well as the challenge of legacy applications and technical debt. So we know that you have a lot of apps, and it's complex working here at Microsoft for the number of apps we have. But we're all using Microsoft apps, and we're not using apps from all different kinds of vendors. And so, you are probably dealing with a lot of different applications you need to use on a daily basis. And so part of my goal today is to help you understand that there is a more modern way to work, and there is a secure way to work. And that is to be inclusive of whether you're remote, or whether you are in your buildings, if you are starting to go back to work, or whether those are hybrid meetings, and whether those are people who are fortunate enough to have all of their abilities, or if that is inclusive of people with disabilities. I will share a slide and a link to our disability seminar, our ability summit for y'all, and would encourage you to go to that. It's actually taking place right now and tomorrow, but the content will be available online afterward. And so the reason I put this up here, and hopefully some of you recognize this, if you're from my generation and you grew up in the 80s, then you would absolutely recognize this. This is the time machine from the movie Back to the Future. And so why do I put a time machine up? Why do we put a DeLorean up? So the cool thing about, and Asante, are you able to see my video as well as the screen?
I can see the slide with how do we achieve secure work.
Can you click the little button so that it shows the video, my video, and the slide at the same time? I'm not sure if that's possible.
Yes, I can.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So when the video comes on, you'll see that I'm holding up this car, which is a replica of the DeLorean from Back to the Future. And the reason I'm holding this up, and the reason I use this as really an analogy, is that Teams is a video conferencing platform, which is kind of what we're doing today. And there are other video conferencing platforms, many of which you probably have been using for years, if not decades, like Skype or WebEx. There are some newer players that have come into the scene more recently who really are fantastic, like Zoom or some of the Google video conferencing technologies. And so what does that have to do with a car and a time machine? So if we consider video conferencing platforms a car, and there are really great cars and then there are not so great cars, then when you look at Teams, and what I want to share with you today regarding the capabilities of Teams beyond just the video conferencing capabilities, it's not the same category of product. So all of these things are a car, they're a video conferencing platform, but they're much more than that. And so the reason I use this time machine analogy is that if you are wanting to move from technical debt and a legacy work environment, and you're wanting to achieve a much more modern work environment, then what I hope to show to you today, and we're going to show to you the rest of the day and in the ensuing meetings, is that Teams really is like a time machine, because it is going to allow your organization to achieve a secure, modern, hybrid work environment, regardless of all of the technical debt that you have, and provide your end users a much more modern experience. So there's my Back to the Future reference, and so everybody should have a Back to the Future reference at least once a day. So when we look at where we currently are, and this was the slide that Janelle shared with the Texas Distance Learning Association, where they are, and they're a 40,000 person organization with 200 plus locations. Some of those locations have T1s. You remember T1s, how slow they are? Some of them have really high throughput connections. Some of the locations have thousands of employees, and some of them have tens of employees. And they have this massive variety of platforms for meetings, collaboration, file sharing, automations. And there are overlaps in features as well as redundancy in cost. We just helped Texas Health and Human Services start using Microsoft's audio conferencing. We have a promotion around that, which means it's free for, I should say included. It is included in your subscription until either for 3 years or the end of your enterprise agreement, whichever comes first. And so we're helping them displace some other technologies and save very large amounts of money that they are spending currently on other platforms that are truly at this point redundant. And one of the reasons I use the version of, I actually have 2 versions of the Back to the Future car. I have the one that has the tail hook that had to hit the cable right at the right moment when the lightning struck the clock tower and deliver 2.21, I think it was, gigawatts to the car to be able to make it go through time. And then I have the current version, which has the Mr. Fusion on the back, and you can just throw some garbage in there and you can create enough energy to travel time. And the reason I bring that up is that a year ago, when many of our customers were rolling out Teams as the pandemic was taking hold, we were really missing a lot of features. And so it made a lot of sense to stick with other platforms that had capabilities like registration pages, the ability to scale to 10,000, 20,000 simultaneous users in a meeting, breakout rooms, tagging, like all these capabilities that our more mature platforms had. Those deficits, really, I'll say, in Teams have been erased over the last year. And I really think we're at this point, we're at that feature parity that many products reach, where like between iPhone and Android, like a Samsung Galaxy or something, where each one comes out with a new version. It comes out with some, whiz-bang feature, and then the next one comes out with something really similar. And so we're now in this sort of leapfrog of new capabilities, which is great, but there's really not a huge business case, I think, for paying for 2 platforms. And there's also a huge cost that comes into play when you're using 2 meeting platforms in the terms of security and maintenance and support contracts. And it almost never comes with all the storage you need. That's a premium. And so all of these different challenges. And so what HHS found is that they were able to use a single support contract through their unified support. They were able to learn more about these capabilities with these monthly meetings that we have. If you're in Health and Human Services, Public Safety and Justice, or Transportation, we have vertical community calls where we really try to share what's going on and how your sister and brother agencies are using Teams in really innovative ways specific to your vertical. And then we also have sessions like this, where we're going to teach you about these new capabilities and show you how to use them inside your organization. And then the other cool thing that I really like about Teams is it has integrated training as part of the product. And we have many ways to deliver training. We'll cover a couple of those. So when we think about Teams, and one of the big differentiators, and this is really that thing that separates from it being a car to it being a time machine for secure modern hybrid work, is the concept of before, during, and after the meeting. In the past, when we were going to have a Skype meeting or a WebEx meeting or a Zoom meeting, when we wanted to set up the agenda and we wanted to collaborate on files, then what we were really forced to do was to send a bunch of emails around. And I don't know about you, you may love email, I hate email. If I could never check email again in my life, that would be great. That is often not the case. And so, and let me just double check, I just heard a strange noise and it sounded like I got dropped.
You're good.
Okay, excellent.
I'm keeping an eye on this.
Thank you, thank you. And so with Teams, you have the ability through a single platform and a single interface to set up the meeting, add the agenda to the meeting, conduct introductions in the chat for the meeting, hold ongoing discussions, share pre-meeting content that has co-authoring capabilities so that if there is work that needs to be done leading up to a meeting, it can be done in the files area for the meeting, or it can be done in a separate area before the meeting. And none of this involves that horrible reply to all email string that goes on. Hey, I sent you the latest version. I think it was the latest version. Can you check the file share? I'm not sure which one's the latest. Mine has _MK edits at the end of the file name. I haven't done that in years because I've been leveraging these technologies, and it does make a game-changing difference in the amount of work it takes to prepare. So that's before. During the meeting, we're going to talk a lot more about hybrid meetings because in Texas, we are still starting to have some of our agencies go back to work in small measure for the most part. Two of my agencies, large agencies, over 10,000 employees each, have told me that they are going to have less than 50% of their employees return to the physical workplace ever. Now, they may come in, but they're not going to work there day in and day out. And so this idea of hybrid meetings is here to stay. And if you've ever been on the other end where all of your team is in a room together and they're in a meeting and they're all physically present and you're the person that's on the other end of the conference call, or you're the person on the other end of a Teams meeting or Zoom or whatever it is, you're a second-class citizen to that meeting. And so how do we create inclusive meetings where whether you're there, whether you're remote, whether you are on your PC or on your phone or on your iPhone or your tablet or whatever the case is, you're a first-class citizen in that meeting. And these are rich meetings that have video like we're sharing here. It has on-demand audio and video. It has content sharing, documents, polls, quizzes. So a really feature-rich meeting to engage our users as well as to be able to gather insight and gather information during the meeting. Things like the attendance report, which the first version of that was a version 1. It was pretty bad. The second version of that, which is either come out or is going to be coming out soon, is much more feature rich. And so during the meeting, we got a much better experience. And then after the meeting, we're able to share integrated notes, whether we use the note panel that is part of the meeting, whether we use OneNote, or in the future, and it's, oh my goodness, it's taken way too long. We are going to have Whiteboard eventually in GCC. They keep promising it. They also keep delaying when it's going to come out. But I have many customers who are using OneNote and using the pen and edit capabilities of OneNote as a shared notebook, as opposed to using Whiteboard. Whiteboard has some really cool capabilities. I won't deny it, that's for sure. But it's not required in order to have some excellent handwritten note-taking and collaboration to go on. We're also able to, after the meeting, through the integration of other technologies, assign tasks and continuing to engage through the meeting chat and the co-authoring and collaboration that takes place after the meetings. And so when we look at these meetings, and on the left-hand side, the collaboration workspaces that I've been talking about, And on the right side, these different types of meetings that we have, and all of these new capabilities with the breakout rooms and the screen sharing and the whiteboarding capabilities, the OneNote capabilities. You get this really feature-rich experience. But down on the bottom, I'm highlighting some of the technologies, and these are all included with your Office 365 subscription. And so this is not something that you need to pay extra for. So things like OneNote and shared OneNotes in Teams, or shared OneNotes in meetings, or just shared OneNotes that are in your OneDrive. Task management with Planner. If you have not used Planner, Planner is a fantastic tool to track tasks, assign users, categories can be applied. You can apply different filters, and it can be used really nicely for agile projects or waterfall projects. And so if you are wanting to use it for project management light, it can be done for that. It's not going to replace Project Server or some other complex project management technology. But this can be integrated right into your team, right into the tab right up at the top. And it integrates to Microsoft To Do, which will now integrate all of your tasks from Planner. It'll integrate your tasks from email, and will integrate your tasks that you set up right inside of To Do. So including flagged emails. And so I showed my wife, who's a CEO, how to do this about a month ago, and she is now a To Do fanatic. And so she is one of the most task-oriented and capable individuals. Me, less so, but I'm working on it. For registration, I have customers now in this hybrid environment that are using the little B right there stands for bookings. And so they're using bookings, which is a tool built into Office 365 to book their shared workspaces, to book their meeting rooms, to book their hoteling cubes. Many of my customers, instead of people going back to their desk or their office, they are now taking the name badges off, and now you reserve a desk for when you come in, clean it up, use it, leave, next person cleans it up, uses it, and leaves, and you don't get to spread out all your stuff anymore. And so that is a capability that's also built in. And then there's the ability, the little squiggle to the right of that is called Power Automate. And so that is a workflow and integration engine that is also included. We have surveys and quizzes with Microsoft Forms that you can embed right into meetings. You can have them stand alone. They're accessible to the internet. They can be used internally. So you can use them for signing up for something. You can use them to create quizzes for checking knowledge and understanding. Apologies, I'm not advancing my slides. They just are telling me, I think my slides are telling me it's time to move on. And you also have a full video recording capability. Right now, the videos are stored in a video hosting platform called Stream. We're going to be going to where you can actually use OneDrive or SharePoint for that video hosting, which is going to be a little easier for sharing, especially if you're wanting to share externally. But you'll still have the capabilities of Stream to use, where you can publish videos, you can have certain channels, you can have different permissions set up. So very powerful video platform that can be used during your meeting or after the meeting. And then lastly, the ability to set up communities. Again, you can use Teams for that. Some of my public sector customers use Yammer, not many, but Yammer is sort of like Facebook for the enterprise. It is a social for the enterprise, and so it gives you the ability to create different communities and have broadcasts that go out. It's just one more way that your communications organization or your HR or your IT can send out information. And so the slide that keeps wanting to be shown, now this is a big slide, and I promise I'm not going to drain this slide. But what I want to point out is this S curve here that goes across the screen. This really points out all of the ways along the path of learning before meetings, registering for meetings, the content creation and the storage, very granular presenter settings, this little officer right here in the middle, so that you can now hard mute your audience. You can turn on the chat or take away from the chat. You can use a waiting room or not. You can have members of your organization that come right into the meeting, and then guests need to wait in the lobby. So a lot of very granular controls now. And the meetings now scale. They used to be between 300 different documentations, had 300 or 350 people in a Teams meeting. We are now able to scale those meetings to 1,000 simultaneous users. And when you reach 1,000, the 1,001st person, all the way up to 20,000 attendees in a Teams meeting, the 1,000 to the 20,000 attend in a view-only mode. And so it truly does scale to a point that that we don't need big event software or event management companies unless they're, you know, like kind of a multi-day event. But if we're just hosting a big meeting, even a public-facing meeting, many of my agencies have been using live events or Teams meetings for those. And it now has the capabilities that that we need, including, of course, the audio conferencing dial-in. But as we go along this whole journey, you can just see that there attendance registration, you know, all of these capabilities that I've been talking about that go throughout the meeting life cycle. And this is this kind of 4-phase area where you go in the prepare, the setup, the deliver, and the follow-up. And then, you know, lots of capabilities that are listed down here below, most of which I've already spoken about. I want to go into some of the additional kind of cool things that you can do that can help you be a little bit more efficient and make your meetings a little better. This is a list of keyboard shortcuts. Sete, are we going to be sharing out the slides afterward?
We can.
Okay. What I can do is I will post the link to this keyboard shortcuts into the chat in just a little while. And so you can have all of those. This is just a very small subset of them. So really fantastic keyboard shortcuts to make it more efficient, as well as really great search that is now part of Teams. It's gotten much better. If you used it a year ago, it's gotten a lot better. So I want to move in now a little bit. So I have a son with significant intellectual as well as physical disabilities. And so inclusivity and creating accessible experiences is a big deal in my life. You may or may not know that Satya Nadella, who is our CEO, has children with disabilities. And there's a lot going on inside of Microsoft and with regard to inclusivity. And so I want to point out some of the capabilities that you have in your meetings. And so the first thing is the subtitles and the automatic transcription. So if you're using the captioning capabilities now, that's built into the latest builds of PowerPoint by default. And so it's a setting under Slideshow where you can turn on captioning right inside of PowerPoint. You can use it inside of your meetings. Now there is a thing right now where if you are in a government tenant, like, okay, this is a Microsoft tenant we're presenting from. And so if we turn on captioning and you're in a GCC tenant, right now we've got a problem where the captioning doesn't work across these different clouds. So we're working on that. The Teams engineering team is well aware of it. So it's getting better. It's not perfect, but the capabilities are there for your internal meetings as well as meetings between agencies. And we also have the ability to move very easily from your PC to your phone or phone to your PC. And so I travel quite a bit between meetings, and I love to work outside and work from coffee shops, so I'm not sitting in my house all day. And so I'll join a meeting from my iPhone. And then when I get to where I have good Wi-Fi on my PC, then I'll just transfer and go into the meeting, and it transfers the audio, transfers everything. And the other people that are in the meeting actually don't even know that I just transferred from one device to another. So sometimes you're at work, you need to really get on the road to get home, you got a meeting that's running long, just transfer it over your phone and hit the road when you're actually going to be back at work. Background blur and different custom backgrounds are nice. We're using that a little bit today, and it's particularly effective if you're working somewhere where there's a lot of things in the background, maybe family going on in the background. Do not disturb mode. I use this on a regular basis so that people aren't pinging me when I'm in a meeting. Now, when I'm presenting, it'll show do not disturb. Outlook also has a capability through the My Analytics to turn on focus time. And so I schedule about 10 hours of focus time per week, and that's time when no one can book on my calendar, or they shouldn't at least because it's booked, but people do that. But when I have my focus time come up on my calendar, it automatically switches teams to do not disturb. And so it lets people know, look, I'm trying to focus here. I'm trying to get some things done. I need some deep thought time, some strategic thinking time, and keeps keeps from interruptions coming in, and that occurs on my phone in Teams as well as on my PC in Teams. Now, from an accessibility standpoint, there is high contrast mode that can be set up on your Windows 10, which I have some challenges. I'm colorblind, and I mean not a little bit colorblind, but I'm like really colorblind. And I also wear hearing aids, and so I love a lot of these capabilities, especially captioning, because I can actually understand what people are saying. And we also have automatic translation. And so when you're in a Teams meeting and the chat is going on, really cool. We have this global campaign going on right now called Teams Broadcast Hub. And one of our teammates in the Ukraine was typing, and we were able to just right-click on it and translate that right into English so we could see what she was saying. And so that's a capability that's built right into Teams chat, and it also is built into the transcription services. Over on the right-hand side around collaboration, really want to bring your attention, if you've not ever heard of the Immersive Reader, just Google or Bing Immersive Reader and take a look at the Immersive Reader capabilities. We're going to be going into, let me look, Christopher Sweetland in week 4, May 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is going to be covering accessibility in Teams meetings. And so I would imagine that he'll share more on the Immersive Reader. We also have voice dictation. I broke my hand one time and I used the voice dictation to dictate my emails and Word documents. You can do voice dictation in almost any of the Office productivity tools. And then really want to highlight the accessibility checker. It's right next to spell check. And what it does is it goes through your document or your PowerPoint and it shows you where you might have things that are not accessible, like an image on your slide or in your document that does not have alternative text. Or if you have a slide and you have a bunch of different graphical elements on the slide that really aren't words and really don't need to be described, but are just there for just kind of to decorate the slide, then you can eliminate those from being read by screen readers. And you can also organize what order the different elements on your slide, like this slide right here has a lot of different elements, and you can order what's going to be read first and make sure that the title gets read, and then this gets read, and then the bullets below this get read next, and that everything goes in the order that you intend, and that for a visually sighted person, that they can see how it's laid out. But for someone who can't see the slide, the accessibility checker will help you make sure that everything is accessible by default. So speaking of accessibility, there is a blog that was just released, literally, I think it was last week, on Microsoft's vision over the next 5 years for what we're going to do to expand accessibility in technology, the workforce, and the workplace. And as I mentioned earlier, the Ability Summit is going on literally right now, and lots of sessions, lots of deep dives into 3 key focus areas for us. This is around technology, around talent development, and around workplace culture. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can go, this is a shortened URL or a tiny URL, aka.ms/accessibility commitment. So definitely take a look at what's available today, but also take a look at what's coming, because there is going to be a huge amount of investment and a huge focus on this from Microsoft. And through our investments, we will enable you to have these capabilities built into your platforms, and then also to work with y'all around your workplace culture so that you can have a more accessible, inclusive, and diverse environment. Okay, so that's cool. What else you got? Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in hybrid work and talk a little bit more about how you can leverage Teams and Teams meetings in the hybrid work environment that we're all going to be dealing with probably for the rest of our lives. I really like the Harvard Business Review IdeaCast. These are podcasts that are available. There's no charge for them. And one of those podcasts was around hybrid work. And so I went and through Microsoft, we have a subscription to Harvard Business Review. And so I copyrighted, and I hope I documented this enough so I don't get in trouble. These are bullet points from one of their articles on hybrid work and why it matters. And there's a lot of guidances available, not just that hybrid work is going to occur, but what do we need from the office, and what is so important about the office? And so what studies have shown is that frequent in-person interactions lead to the commitment, the support, and the cooperation among people on teams. Now, I joined Microsoft. I worked at Microsoft for 10 years. I left for 10 years and worked for Microsoft Partners. And then I came back, and I came back in December of 2019. And I have only met 2 of my amazing teammates. And I met them actually at a conference before I came back to Microsoft. Everybody else I've just worked remotely. And so I've never actually met all of these wonderful people that I get to work with. So we use Teams to connect with each other. We have a happy hour once a week where we talk about what's going on. We talk about some work stuff, but we also just make sure that we're staying connected to each other and keep maintaining our friendships. And so when we look at the office, even though your people may not be working out of the office all of the time, we can really use the office as a social anchor for where people get together, where they have those chance encounters, where they just visit with each other. And as we deal with the stressors of working remotely, we as leaders in our organizations need to create a culture where it's okay to come in and visit and have those chance encounters and have the ability to have a standing meeting for 15 minutes in a hallway where people can connect and have an exchange of ideas without people wondering, hey, why you were standing there 10 minutes ago? What are you doing? Why aren't you working? We need that ability to be able to go into the office and to connect with each other, whether we're going to be doing that on a daily basis or just in every once in a while. And so being on purpose with keeping the connection going. And so also the office is a schoolhouse. Depending on the seniority of your workforce, you may have newer people, and it's really critical for newer people to be able to come in to the physical office, if that's a possibility, to be able to have mentors that where it can be a casual mentoring engagement, because you can just roll next door and say, hey, what do you do? How do you do this? Where someone might not be comfortable reaching out and scheduling a meeting to ask that question, they can use Teams for a quick chat, or they can actually interact with a more senior person. So when you start thinking about your hybrid office redesign and the way you leverage Teams to keep people connected, also think about the office as a schoolhouse. And then I already mentioned this unstructured collaboration. There have been some interesting studies done from actually where they can see where people are moving and where people are collaborating. And regular hallways are not very conducive to unstructured collaboration, because you're standing in the hall and there's a lot of people walking by, and you may need to kind of have a little bit of a private conversation. And so creating spaces that might be just off of the hallway, maybe just a little huddle room where people can have unstructured collaboration, is where we're seeing a lot of trends in the actual redesign of our office spaces. If you're swizzling cubes and workstations to have a more open office design, then this is something to be thinking about. And so as you think about creating the office of tomorrow, we have a lot of offices have gone more to the kind of the bullpen open scenario. And so if you've done any redesign or remodeling in your offices, you may have more of that. And so what we're seeing in the office of tomorrow is this use of, as I mentioned earlier, the hoteling cubes, but also meeting rooms, huddle rooms, and conference rooms. And so, excuse me one second, let me take a quick sip.
Hey, Michael, while you're taking a quick sip as well, I see a couple of questions in the chat about your comment around translation. So I wanted to see if you could make some clarification around, what is available in GCC today being the chat translation rather than the live meeting translation.
Yeah. And that's a great question. And so I'm gonna rely on some of my teammates here also. Is the right-click translate feature available? Asete, do you remember in GCC in the chat?
In chat, yes.
Excellent. So if you're in a chat, in a Teams meeting, or if you're just in a chat and someone is communicating to you in a different language, you can right-click and translate the chat message, and it's built right in. Then there's also, when you're in PowerPoint and you turn on the subtitling in PowerPoint, you can pick which languages. And so you can pick up to 6 languages. And so you say, I'm presenting in English, and I want you to translate into Spanish, Russian, French, German, whatever the case might be. And so for people who are attending that meeting, whose default language on their PC is set to one of those languages that you have selected, it will translate that for them while you're talking during the PowerPoint. And if you have it does require a good microphone and headset, or a good microphone for sure, but it is amazingly accurate. And even for people who do have accents, we're finding that it is very, very accurate. So 95% accurate, which is good enough for most purposes. And so now with things like Stream, where you record a meeting and you want to create translations, and where 100% accuracy is important, then you can go into Stream, you can download the transcript, you can correct the transcript and put the exact right spelling of all of the words and define acronyms, and then you can re-upload that transcript so that when people are watching that later and they're using either the captioning capability or something for people with disabilities to translate that text and relay that to them, then it will use that corrected translation. Thanks, Sesete. Are there any other questions that I can address right now?
No, I think we're good for now. That one just kept on repeating, so thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. So hybrid meetings, the picture on the wall there, that is actually a Surface Hub 2, I believe is what it is. It's an 85-inch Surface Hub. It's basically like a Surface device. Has a pen that comes with it, has a camera. You can see a little camera up at the top. It can be mounted on a wall. This is actually, there is a stand that it can be mounted on so that it can be moved around. We're seeing a lot of our organizations who are doing a lot of Teams meetings starting to invest in hardware that's going to allow that first-class remote attendee experience that I talked about. So in this case, what you're seeing on that screen is what we call Together Mode. So if you haven't ever used this, it's available in your tenant, if you're GCC or commercial sector tenant, Office 365. And you just go under and you can go to Gallery View. You can go to Large Gallery View, which is kind of the 7x7, 49 people. We've done research, and when you are looking at 49 people on a screen and everybody's in a little square and you're seeing all their backgrounds and all this stuff going on, it is very physically taxing, actually literally physically taxing on your brain, and you burn more calories and it's more stressful for your brain because there's so much stimulus going on. And so Together Mode uses AI, the same AI that allows us to have a background. Like what you're seeing behind me is not really what's behind me. My media room is what's behind me. And so the same thing that cuts me out and puts me in front of a background, it takes your cutout and puts you into an auditorium seat, or you can do a cafe, or you can do a winter wonderland scene. And so we're always coming out with new Together Mode scenes. But this significantly decreases the cognitive strain, and yet allows you to see, if you have a large group of people that are attending a meeting, then you can see people's faces and you can see that confused look that tells you, oh, I just lost somebody. And it just makes the meetings more fun and creates that social engagement. So if you've never used that, then definitely check that out. But what I want to point out is that in this room, we have 3 laptops. You've got a Surface laptop, you have a Surface Pro, and then my favorite device, what I'm using right now, I'm using the Surface Book. I have the Surface Book 2. We actually just released the Surface Book 4. And then you have one of our partner desk phones in the middle. And so some really cool things are happening in this room. When you are using huddle rooms or major conference rooms and you walk into a Teams enabled room, you have a thing called proximity join. And so Teams will actually recognize that you've entered into a Teams room and can offer to have your meeting come alive in the Teams room. You also have the ability with the right devices to have one touch join, which is just all you got to do is touch and push the little button one time on the little screen on the device in the middle of the table or on the wall of the room, or you can leverage Cortana as a digital assistant to have no touch, voice enabled join of the meeting, which for people who are very, very concerned about touching anything in the office, they may not want to be in the office at all, but maybe they have to be. This is a way that you can really decrease the contact surfaces and what people need to touch. The other thing that is really important about being in meetings, especially when you're having a hybrid work environment, is the transcription. So when you're using the captioning, you have what's called, Asete, help me out here, attribution, speaker attribution. So what speaker attribution is it says, Michael, and then what I said. And then John, if John's in the meeting, or John Smith, and then what John said. And so speaker attribution lets you know who said what, which is really important when you're someone like me who has some hearing loss and you're needing to see who said what. And if you have 49 people on the screen, it may not be obvious whose mouth is moving and who is actually talking. And so speaker attribution is a very handy feature for your hybrid work environment. And we have just released new speakers that go in the middle of the room that have multiple microphones in them. And you train teams what your voice sounds like, what your biometric is, so that when you're speaking in a room with, I think it's up to 6 people, then it will actually give speaker attribution based on recognizing your voice. Which again really helps when you're remote and you got 6 people in a room and you're seeing that transcription. Now, the transcription happens on the screen itself, but it also happens in a transcription of the meeting. And so if you need a transcription of the meeting, then that is an asset that is downloadable after the meeting as part of the assets from the meeting, like the notes, the recording, the transcription, the attendee report. So lots of information that's available. So in this one, people are wearing masks. Someday, maybe, we're going to go to a place where we're not all wearing masks again. And you might have an environment where you need a little bit more mobility to be able to have these hybrid meeting experiences. Maybe you have a couple of people. Now, these are the Surface Studios, the most gorgeous computer ever made, in my opinion. The users here that are sitting and working are using Surface Studios, large format screens with a pen. This is called a Surface Hub 2S, I think it's called. This easel that it rolls on, this thing right here in the middle, is actually a battery, and so it can be unplugged and can go for hours without being plugged in. Has a camera built in and also has the pen and all of the capabilities for remote meetings. There are also a variety of different devices. So very inexpensive compared to the days, 5 years ago and 10 years ago when you wanted to create a video room. So sub $2,000 room systems. So I know that's nothing to sneeze at, but it's a lot less than they used to be with big Cisco rooms or Tandberg or Polycom rooms. And so we have some great partners who have devices who have been certified with Teams. You can also use Skype certified devices. And you can create these huddle rooms or these experiences for your hybrid workforce and the attendance of meetings that are much more engaging. So that makes sense. What about my new hires? So many of you are hiring people and losing people. It can be positive attrition, people that you kind of, wow, sorry you're leaving, not really. And then there could be people that you really did not need that person to leave. But regardless, some of my customers, most are having about 10% turnover. And so 10% turnover was one thing when everybody was coming to the office, but 10% turnover in the age of COVID and the age of hybrid work is actually going to change the game on how we interact with our new employees. And so here's another great podcast from HBR IdeaCast, and really looking at what and who are we looking for. A totally unique concept is ask the team what are the skills that they need in their teammates that are joining the team. And so this does not occur in most organizations. Usually HR takes some the document of the job description that was written years ago, post that, and that may or may not be what is needed today. And so we're really seeing innovative organizations asking the team, and then virtual interviews, virtual onboarding. And so what I want to do next is have a little bit of fun. I built a demo for it was actually a competition, and Adobe and Microsoft came together and wanted to do a scenario for leveraging the digital sign capabilities. And so the scenario that I created was an employee onboarding scenario. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video. Now, there was about 25% of the score on the competition was for creativity. So it's a little tongue in cheek. So we had a little bit of fun with it. And then I'm going to kind of go through and show the way that we can leverage Teams and Teams meetings for things like employee onboarding and hiring our new workforce. So let me switch. Yeah, go ahead.
You may have to stop sharing and reshare with your audio on.
I think I did. Let me click play, and will you tell me
Sure.
if you can hear it? Are you seeing a day in the life at T-Dog?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in this demonstration, we're going to
Yes,
be
we're
working
good.
with a fictitious agency, the Texas Department of Goodness, also known as T-Dog, and we're going to be taking you through an employee onboarding experience. I'd like to thank the Dell Children's Medical Center where we filmed all of the shots here and did the demo, and thank you to their amazing staff and the care that they give to their patients. Someone's at the door. It's my first day of work at T-Dog.
Hey.
Hey, honey, can you feed the baby? It's my welcome package for T-Dog. Yep, that's actually the hospital room we were staying in. Hey, honey, look at this awesome welcome kit that I got from the Texas Department of Goodness, T-Dog. So it's this speakerphone, because I'm going to be working remotely now that we have COVID. It's this great headset, and look at this awesome Microsoft Surface Pro computer. This is so cool. So I got this welcome letter with my name on it. It says, we're so excited to have you join our team, and to begin your journey, scan the QR code below with your smartphone. Well, I can do that. Let me start up my camera. Okay. Right. Oh, that's cool. It's a form welcoming to T-Dog in English and Spanish. That's neat. And it says, please enter your cell phone number below to begin your enrollment process. If it matches the number we have on file, you'll receive a text message asking you to authenticate with your government ID. Oh, cool. Okay, so I entered my cell phone, click submit. All right, it says, thanks, your response was submitted. Oh, I got a text message. Okay, let me see. It says from Adobe Sign, and it says tap the above link to provide your government ID. All right, I can do that. All right, somehow it's going to magically scan my government ID. Oh, that's cool. Okay, it was successful. All right, now it's asking me to take a photo selfie. Almost done. Let's take a selfie so we can match you to your ID. Wow. Okay, that's cool. All right, let me take a picture. Okay. All right, perfect. Success. You've submitted your photos successfully. Thanks. You may close the browser window now and please check your desktop for the next steps. Cool. So I get to use my Windows PC. All right. Like I said, little tongue in cheek here. So this is a scenario where we have someone that is joining an organization remotely. We've already gone through the interview process. We've made the offer. They've accepted the offer. And so, but this is a way that we can authenticate that person and we can now engage with them. And so when they log on to their new PC that have been sent to them, they are added to the team and they get this welcome message. And so what we're able to do now, and let me get a pen here and I'll go with a pen. So we have the ability to have this welcome message, and this is called an adaptive card, and we can bring an employee on and we can show them, okay, we got some things for you to learn. We have some things for you to sign, and then we're going to have your first meeting with your manager. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Learn link, and this is going to take me to our employee learning portal that is actually surfaced up in Teams. And so Teams can be used as a platform to host this thing called Learning Pathways, which is a training site available from Microsoft at no charge. And so you can have all of your Office 365 training and other training that can be hosted right within this. It's not a true learning management system, but it's a free platform for your training. And you can have all kinds of initiatives that are done with that. And so maybe we have some welcome training, day one training, first week training, how to use Teams training, whatever the case might be. And then the next thing that I need to do as a new employee is I need to sign some documents. So the next thing I'll do is I'll click on that middle link and click sign. And so this will bring up right inside of Teams our documents. And so I need to go in and I can click review and sign. And then I can actually right here inside of inside of the Teams, inside of the interface here, and that's not my real signature, that's the best I can do with my mouse, and then I can click apply. And what it does is it brings in information from your HR system or SharePoint or wherever you might have it, and fills in this form, and then when I click to go ahead and send that in, then my HR department gets a notification that the employee agreement has signed. So Teams has this automations and these integrations with third parties, which we're also going to talk more about in future sessions, that can allow your organization to become much more streamlined and automated. And so then the last thing that I would want to do is go ahead and schedule the meeting with my boss. And so I can click this meet link, and that can pop up a bookings interface for my boss's calendar, or it can bring up Outlook so that I could book that meeting. And then I'll be able to go ahead and sign up for this first meeting and a welcome meeting with my boss. And so, the old way of doing things when we were actually able to be together and bring people into the office is the candidate and recruiting would send emails back and forth. And once the offer was done, recruiting would send that packet to HR, and they would send an email to IT, and they would send an email to the training department, and an email to the manager and team. And everybody would enter information into all these different systems. And usually somebody would accidentally make a mistake and they would type something in wrong. And so there'd always, the process would get delayed. And what could be a multi-minutes process extends into a multi-week process. And it's just very painful for someone who is remote and can't just get things taken care of. And so what we did instead is, once that offer is made and the recruitment person has gotten the authorization to extend the offer, then all of these systems are now integrated so that Teams is used to send messages to the different groups and the different departments, and all of that is done via Power Automate and the integration of these third-party products and the Microsoft platform. You can integrate into your HR system to make sure that we have the right offer that's sent out, and you can integrate into other systems within your environment, like your ServiceNow or your Remedy environment, or whatever your ticketing environment is, and send a little message that says, Michael Kennedy, he's on the innovation team due to COVID-19. He'll be working remotely. Please pack and ship the welcome kit with a Surface Pro, Windows 10, and Office 365. And they're able to click for more details and go right into the ServiceNow ticket. They can confirm that they've done that, or they can reply to the HR group and see if they need to get some additional information. And so the end result is happy employee. Gets the welcome kit, you're able to onboard the different individuals. Now, I showed in this scenario that we actually use this government ID authentication that is built into the Adobe Sign platform. You don't have to use Adobe Sign. They're very tightly integrated into the Microsoft platform. You can use DocuSign or whatever the case might be. But what it really is all about is leveraging the capability that you already own, all of these things that you might not really have thought about or might not be using for the before, the during, and the after of the Teams experience. So I really appreciate Asete allowing me to kick this off. I appreciate all of you attending. I hope you got some value out of this session. There is more to come with Laura Lazarescu, my peer out of the Dallas area, and Stacy Strickland and Ryan today. And so I hope you all enjoy the rest of the time. And again, thank you so much for allowing me to present to y'all.